There's no way to tell if and when a piece of tempered glass will break. But here's the problem. Take Cipro's 31-page insert. You have to go all the way down to the fine print on page 9 to find these warnings. From the passenger seat, I went on Facebook. We'll see if this thing is spot on. Used WhatsApp to send a message. Sending the text. I led Rachel on a detour where her like-new minivan was waiting.
Oh, my God. Thank you, Miss Jackie. So much. Thank you.
A car is blowing up, and there's a baby in the car, and the people just removed the baby.
Daniel and Christina Adams' Kia caught fire as they drove down a Polk County highway last month.
It was engulfed in flames before I even really was out of the car.
Christina barely had time to unbuckle her baby's car seat.
It honestly felt like seconds before the entire car was engulfed.
The Adams story echoes other victims that we've interviewed. They all say that in the 10 or 15 seconds it took them to get out of the burning car over to safety, by that time the vehicle was fully engulfed.
I thought I was going to die.
Tisha Van Allen says her Optima spontaneously burst into flames with her behind the wheel in Memphis weeks ago.
There was no way to get out until the gentleman actually yanked the door.
Hundreds of Kia drivers around the country have filed similar reports with the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. But two models stand out. 91 of the complaints involve the 2011 to 2014 Optima and Sorento. Many of these vehicles already under an engine defect recall unrelated to the fires.
Seeing pictures that look just like ours, it makes you sick.
Weeks before the fire, Kia replaced the engine in the Adams Sorento under that recall.
And it's still burned down.
We've spoken with 9 Kia drivers who say their vehicle burned to the ground.
But my car's on fire.
To put the fires into perspective, we looked at similar-sized SUVs and sedans. Over a 3-year period, Ford, Toyota, and Honda reported a total of 5 fires combined.
I'm looking for signs of shorting, signs of arcing.
We brought in auto fire investigator Rich Meyer to examine the Adams SUV.
What that means is we had a fire that was burning down in this area.
He determined the fire started in the rear portion of the engine compartment, but could not pinpoint the cause.
Is that their car?
It is.
Our questions prompted Kia to examine 3 of the vehicles in our stories. The company stated it will provide inspection results directly to those customers. And if the fire is a result of a manufacturing-related issue, Kia will work with customers to address any costs and expenses they may incur.
Here you have a major threat to life and to property.
Senator Bill Nelson petitioned NHTSA for a full investigation after seeing one of our stories. But the agency limited its review to the 2 recalls already in place.
Get over! Get over!
Consumer watchdogs, including Consumers Union, accuse NHTSA of failing to protect public safety by not separately investigating the fires.
And it needs to be much more vigilant when it comes to recalls.
Now the U.S. Senate Transportation Committee is debating whether to call a Senate hearing that would force the makers of Kia to answer questions under oath. I'm I-Team investigator Jackie Callaway, taking action for you.
This was my basic training.
6 months after basic training, Mo Sparkman flew to Iraq for his first tour of duty.
I was extremely proud to do it.
From 2003 to 2004, Sparkman escorted contractors in and out of the war zone near Baghdad.
We were doing it on a road that was tagged as MSR Tampa, and that road was considered the deadliest road in Iraq.
The former Army specialist showed me his Medal of Commendation and a Combat Action Badge.
I put my head down and worked hard.
Mo returned to Iraq for a second tour in 2006. Months later, he says his then-wife had what he calls a nervous breakdown.
She was not fit to care for herself anymore.
Mo says the Army granted him a 10-day leave to return home, and he then filed a formal request to transfer to a base stateside to care for his wife. He tells his commanders denied that request, and it was then this soldier says he had to choose between family and country.
It was a decision that was incredibly difficult for me.
12 years after deserting his post, Mo Sparkman finds himself staring down a certain death sentence.
I can just feel the muscle kind of flapping.
Doctors diagnosed the 35-year-old father of 2 with ALS this past March.
I was walking without the use of a cane 4 months ago.
Mo's case, more aggressive than most. The disease already stolen the use of his legs.
I need assistance from the military, from the VA. You don't want any more of that macaroni?
Once again, Mo finds himself asking the military to help his family.
And I very much loved being a part of the military.
But his desertion disqualifies him from VA medical benefits. Time is running out for Mo,
Thank you.
his new wife Donna, and their children.
And there is no possibility for this to go away, so it's hard.
Mo applied to the VA for medical benefits in March. He was still waiting for an answer when I met him in October.
Oh my gosh, this is, what, almost 8 months in the waiting here.
Then last month, a life-changing call. The VA approved him for health care.
Thank you very much, Jackie.
We met up with Mo just before his first appointment with VA doctors. How does it feel to be here now?
It feels absolutely amazing to have this opportunity for the medical care.
Sparkman is finally getting this medical care because the VA approved something called a character of service determination. Now, he still has a military arrest warrant, and to resolve it, he'll have to turn himself in and undergo a discharge process that could take weeks. Thousands of Clearwater residents participate in the city's recycling program.
Pick up soda cans and water bottles.
But for Betsy Wood, it's a passion.
I could recycle this, yes.
Betsy, who's won awards for cleaning up multiple roadways in Pinellas County, assumed everything she'd loaded into her recycle bin was picked up from her driveway and then taken to a recycling center.
I believe they go over to Tampa and get properly disposed of.
But the I-Team found that's not always the case. In August alone, the city collected 952 tons of recycled materials from Clearwater homes and businesses. But more than 300 tons, or 1/3 of all that recycling, was dumped and burned at Pinellas County's incinerator. For people who say, why didn't you tell me you weren't recycling all of my stuff and it was getting burned? What do you say to that?
We just didn't put that out there.
I asked Earl Gloucester, director of Clearwater Solid Waste, why they burn hundreds of tons of recycling.
Recent months, we've experienced a high level of contamination.
The city blames residents for throwing trash like wood, toys, and plastic bags in with the recyclables. This pile represents the contamination found in a single load. Therein lies the problem.
This is good, this is good, this is good.
But after we started asking questions, waste management bosses told us they started a new program to make sure less recyclables ended up in the incinerator. We visited the city's recycling facility in early September and found 7 solid waste staffers picking garbage out of the recycling collected that morning. So if we would have come here a month ago, we would not have seen 7 guys, 7 employees.
No.
Gloucester said he would continue sorting through recyclables to prevent past problems, including 2 full semi-trucks of recyclables which were turned away from this recycling center in Ybor City because the load contained so much trash. Problem solved? Not exactly. We went back 3 weeks later and our cameras caught 2 city recycling trucks headed straight for the city's trash facility, a pit stop on the way to the incinerator.
Very sad if a third of it's is being burned. That's not good.
We reached out to Clearwater again, and the city says if the recycling truck drivers can tell the majority of the collection is contaminated, they dump the whole load rather than sorting through it. Solid waste bosses also defend incineration as an acceptable form of recycling because they say the plant generates electricity for about 40,000 homes. And city officials say they're working on a public awareness campaign to remind residents what exactly goes into those recycle bins.